And to move on to what is important, I know all of us have been waiting patiently to pass the mic on to Cüneyt Abi. So we'll do this in a minute. I just thought maybe I'll start with a quick introduction, basically, and then I'll hand the mic over to Cüneyt Abi. So archery is something that Cüneyt Abi has been doing for a long time now, about 10 years, if not even more than that. He's a founder member of the Kenmankeş Frankfurt institution. He is, passionate about leather. It's a hobby of his. Leather making is something that he has done wonders with and excelled through as well. So he has developed that passion into, or that hobby, I should say, into a passion of his. And this is why we have him today, because he's going to speak to us about the art of leather making. So without any further ado, I pass it on to you, Cüneyt Abi.
Yeah, we can hear you. Unmute myself, right?
Yes, we can hear you now. We can hear
you.
Thanks.
So hello, everyone. So I'm honored to have a presentation here for you. From my perspective, this is just a kind of, I would say, a beginner's experience. Yeah. So what, I would love to show you my journey when it comes to archery. Leatherwork was, I think, the last step which I did after starting the archery. So I will just start with my presentation, and then at the end we can collect the questions or have a discussion. Whenever you have a question in between, you can raise your hand, and I will take your questions then. So I start here my presentation. I hope you see it full screen now. So what you will hear is, depends, no, it consists of, I think, in overall 4 steps. I will start with how I started with leatherworking, and then what is leather, how skin becomes leather, about tanning processes, etc. I will talk a little bit about different leather types. And then I will have a bigger section of how I do the artistic part of that leatherworking, to get some designs or patterns onto the leather. And then I will step over to construction and construction of Ottoman-style intricacies, arrow quivers. And then at the end, I will step over to some leather pieces which I did and show it to you. So how did I start with leatherworking? So I started 2017 with traditional archery at Kenmankeş in Frankfurt. And at that times, there was really a lot of lack for equipment. So we were able to get bows from Hungary at those times. Beside that, in Germany, nothing was present. And even in Turkey, it was hard to get even thumb rings, for example. So I just started then doing it my own. Yeah, I initially started with preparing thumb rings. I did it for myself in first step, and after figuring it out, I also started producing thumb rings for my friends in my archery club. And after that, I wanted to have original looking like Ottoman arrows for archery, wooden arrows. So there I had my first contact with Thumb Archery in Germany. It's a German group of people who do traditional archery, but with the Asian techniques. And I got a lot of support in producing these arrows, barreled arrows with needle tips and Ottoman-style feathers, etc. Started to produce wooden arrows in second step. So After that, I had my bow, I had thumb rings, I had my arrows, but I did not have such nice quivers, which can be found in every museum. And the initial idea was, of course, doing it myself. And the idea was to go to a workshop in Germany, learn about how to process leather or do some leather goods, yeah, simple ones. And then after learning that, the idea was to, yeah, just make my quivers and proceed with archery itself. Yeah, here on the right side, you can see the first yeah, leather good which I did in that workshop. Consists of these two flowers. It's a kind of wallet, and this is what we did in over a weekend. And while doing that, we got, of course, in discussion with the teacher there. I met Jürgen Vollbach, who was the teacher in that class. He's from Cologne, and he asked me how it comes that I started with leather works. And I explained to him that I do traditional archery, and I want to do produce some nice quivers, Ottoman style, for me. And then we looked at some pictures, and he was curious, and he offered me to do it together. And that's how everything started at the end. So I did not know who Jürgen was at that time. For me, it was just a simple teacher, but now I know he's a world-class, really a world-class leather artist. Right now he's in the US, doing some workshops, participating in some contests, yeah, and he even won some prizes right now. Okay, this is how everything started, and then I produced, based on this picture here, a bow quiver and an arrow quiver. You see the original pictures, and on the right lower part, you see the ones which I did together with Jürgen. We worked together, 2 persons, 8 days on these quivers, and minimum 10 hours we worked a day. Yeah, and during these 8 days, I gained a lot of knowledge from Jürgen. He really was not hiding anything from me. And after the workshops, I had my quivers and a lot of experience, of course. What I did not know is that my quivers were nice, but in practical usage, they had some disadvantages. I will talk about that a little later. So this is the beginning of the story. And so what do I do? For me, leather work is just a hobby. I don't do it professionally. I have no big workshop. I just have a small workbench here in my living room. I don't do serial productions or mass productions. It's really kind of single pieces. I concentrate more on the artistical side than on mass production. And of course, I like to do new things. So whenever I figured out something, then I kind of lose my interest and then step over to some new things. So stepping over to the fundamentals of leather. So questions: what is leather? How does skin become a leather? And what kind of processes are existing for that? So question to you, what is leather? Yeah, normally you have a skin of an animal, any animal, does not need to be a cow, can be a snake, can be a frog, can be an elephant, yeah, it doesn't matter. At the end, it's a skin of an animal. And if you get that skin from that animal, it is not leather yet, yeah. To become a leather, it has to be processed. If it's not getting processed like this tanning process, then it will rotten. That's the difference. Yeah, to make it durable, long-lasting, and usable for products, you have to make it. You have to make from skin a leather. Yeah. There are also different types of leathers existing. Even artificial leathers are existing nowadays. In every car, nobody's using any more real leather. It's all artificial leather. But they have the same, more or less the same properties of natural leather, even longer lasting and more enduring ones. So how does skin become a leather? This is just a simple listing of the process. You get the skin out of the animal, of course, and then initially you have a preservation process. Mainly it is salted to store it for a couple of days, and after that the skin of the animal with the hairs, etc., is cleaned. The fat is removed, the blood, etc., the dirt is removed, even the hairs, and for that, mechanical devices are used. Also, chemical liquids, etc., is used to, for example, get the hairs easier out of the skin. The most important part is the tanning process in point number 4 here. This is really the process where the skin becomes leather and it stops the rotting process, the natural rotting process. Yeah, until point 3, if you stop the process there, the skin will rotten and disappear over time. But after tanning, it gets durable, and you can use it for your products and proceed with producing some goods out of it. And after having that leather tanned, of course, it's still a whole skin. It can be processed. It will be dried. It will be dyed, maybe. Yeah, get colors, and sometimes even they process the surface of the leather, depending on what you want to do. Yeah, sometimes they get, for example, you use the cow leather, but you get the shape of or the form of snake leather or crocodile leather, like optics. And even some coatings are done to make it more shiny, etc. So that's how a skin becomes leather. And then what kind of tanning processes are existing? In the past, of course, everything was done more mechanically, less chemical. I mean, not at least artificial chemicals, but more like natural. Nowadays we have the most common one is chrome tanning, and then for me personally, the vegetable tanned leathers are the most important ones, and then you have different other types of tanning, and depending on this tanning process, the properties of the leather is changing. So it means depending on what kind of leather you need, you have to use different kind of tanning processes. And even, for example, if you have just a simple vegetable tanning, depending on the materials you use, what kind of leaves you use, what kind of natural products you use for the tanning process, the properties of the leather changes, you know, those even the colors, etc., can change. So, and all this depends on a lot of experience. So you have tanning companies, they just do this tanning process, and everyone has its own technique, his own tradition. They pass the information down from generation to generation. The types of leather which I use is named, I think, russet leather. In Germany, we say Blankleder. This is a vegetable tanned leather. Here it says that it is a thick type of leather, but of course it can get in different thicknesses. And the main property is that it is really just the leather itself. So you don't have it colored. There is no oil inside. It's flexible, but not that flexible as the other leathers you are used from, I don't know, different products like bags or jackets, etc. They are softer than this leather here. This one is more robust. But as I said, it is just the leather, so you have to use it as a kind of starting material, and then you have to give it oil and you have to color it by yourself. So this is the natural color of leather after the tanning process. These vegetable tanned leathers, they are robust, durable, they are stiffer, even after oiling, have a natural look. So over time, for example, if this one stays in the sun, or if you use it over time, it will change the color because it's kind of natural one. The chemical process ones, the chrome tanned leathers, for example, they just keep form, they keep color. They don't have this natural patina over time. And yeah, this one can easily be processed, punched, beveled, etc. And then you can get nice products out of it. This type of leather is also used in saddlery and other leather, high quality leather goods, as it says here. There are no questions so far, so I will proceed with how I process the leather, the way how I do it. Yeah. Initially, there is an idea of what I want to do, and normally you can also draw the patterns by yourself, but this is a separate artistical field. So you have to educate yourself. You have to train yourself to get there. So for me, it's like I search for patterns online, and then I print it in the size I need it, and then what I will show you is here in these pictures, the process of how to get such glass covers, yeah, for your sunglasses. Yeah, so I have the idea. I take the pattern and transfer it with some pencils onto a transfer paper. I just, yeah, it's a kind of translucent paper. After that, having the pattern on the paper, I cut out a piece of this vegetable tanned leather out of the whole hide, and now the pattern needs to be transferred from the paper onto the leather. There are different possibilities to do that, but at the end you get the prepared pattern onto the leather here on the right side. Even if it's slightly visible, you see it, and then you can use it for your purposes. Yeah, so then in the very first, after this transferring the pattern, you have a so-named swivel knife here, which has a rotating blade, and with this you cut the pattern into the leather itself. This is the first time the leather gets a mechanical impact. Yeah, so this is just the cutting of the lines which you have transferred onto the leather. This is the first step. Before doing everything, all of that, you have to wetten the leather a little bit. Otherwise, you cannot cut and you cannot punch it to get this printings. Yeah, so it has to have a certain humidity. It does not have to be too wet and not too dry. So you have to find the amount of wetness or humidity in the leather. So after that, you can cut it, and then in the second step, after cutting it, you use this cutted lines to do the stamping process. Yeah, this is named beveling, and there for that you have different types of irons you use to imprint the leather surface. Yeah, so here you see the first beveling process. I just go over the lines, and depending on the pattern, on the inside, on the outside, etc., you make this pattern more visible, more 3D. Yeah, the beveling process. So here on this left picture, you see the pattern after being just beveled. Only the lines, the contours have been beveled with these irons. And here you see it a little bit closer. And this is the other second pattern, which I use for demonstration purposes here. So in the next step, you start defining the pattern a little bit more. So what I did is I used these stems in the middle part, and here you see the stem of the tree. It gets a different surface. It looks like really the surface of a tree. And then in next step, you have again different types of irons where I worked out the leaves and the flowers here. You see the difference to the left side or to the middle picture here. The flowers are a little bit more worked out. So, and then again, more details. For example, the middle part of the leaves, they are not worked out here on this picture, but here you see the leaves have got a little bit more detail. Even the flowers are worked out more in detail. And yeah, for that, I also use different types of irons. I do have a bunch of set, but you never can have too many of them, kind of, depending on what you want to do. And so after working out the pattern itself, the stem, the flowers, the leaves, to make it a little bit more 3D, you even can cut into the leather and then lift it a little bit up so that the leaves get a little bit more 3D shape. So that's the last process. And with that, the leaves look like really getting out of the leather, and then looks like a real leaf sitting on the leather than being in the leather. So this is the first glass quiver here, which I did. The beveling part is finished here. It has to be dried. This one is still a little bit humid. You see it a little bit darker than the outside here. And this is the second pattern. The first time where I tried an oriental pattern here. Karanfil, what's that? It's a certain flower type which is very carnation. Okay, it's a carnation flower, which is widely used in the Orient, in Ottoman area, etc. After beveling, here I stamped down the environment of the flower so that the flower kept a little bit more on the surface, so it stands out a little bit more 3D. And then I used such modeling to model the leaves themselves and also the flower leaves here. And for the background, I decided to use such kind of bubbles. You see it on the picture. There are different diameters of this bubbles. And at the very end, you do some decorative cuts onto the flowers and onto the leaves. And after that, also this pattern was finished. This is just an example. You know, if you have different patterns, you use different types of irons and different steps maybe. This now depends on your experience and on your artistic experience, etc. Everyone does it a little bit different. But this is the way how I do it. This is the first step. As I said, the patterns are now on the leather. They are stamped. They have a 3D impression. Okay, I also added my logos here onto the leather. But this is still not a ready-to-go product. Yeah, it's just the leather is processed. The stamping process is done. And in the very beginning, I thought this is the most important part of doing these things. Of course, this is standing out, but the most critical or the most, I should say, challenging part is getting out of this piece here, where you have spent a lot of effort product at the end. You know, you have to cut it, you have to sew it, you have to color it, etc. And if you do a mistake there, the whole work was for nothing, kind of. So this is just the beginning, but the most artistic part of it. The rest is just kind of handwerk. What's that? Handcraftship.
Handcrafting, Cüneyt abi.
Craftsmanship. That's it. Yeah. Okay, so the artistic part is over. The craftsmanship is starting. So I cut out my leather goods, and here on this side I let a little bit more leather standing. This is something I need later for gluing and sewing it. Yeah. So here you have to cut it very carefully. You know, if you cut a little bit too wrong, then everything was for nothing again. Then after this cutting process, it's about oiling. So to get these patterns onto the leather, I make it a little bit wet. I do the stamping process, etc. And to make it lasting, you have to oil it. After oiling it, somehow it keeps the shape. So, for example, if I stamp it after the oiling process, the imprints will not be that deep. It will be kind of spongy and go back to the original form it has before. So after oiling it, you cannot do the stamping process anymore. After oiling, the leather gets darker. So for example, on the left side, you see it's kind of pinky. Without the oil, after oiling it, it gets just darker. And that influences also later the colors. So it's really hard to catch one specific color you want to reach at the end. So there is always a kind of variation. With experience, you can catch that wanted color at the end, but every process kind of changes the color. Yeah, for the next step after oiling it, it's about coloring. Here I used a color which is named saddle tan. Of course, there are various types of colors, various brands of color producing companies, and everyone has a different properties. Yeah, so you have to test them out for yourself, and then yeah, just use what you are used to. And for these coloring processes, we have such kind of wool brushes. You just dip it into the color and then spread the color all over the surface. The leather soaks it, and it's very dark at the beginning, and then if it dries, it gets the final color at the end. You know, here just right after coloring it, you see it's very dark. After a while it gets lighter, and then here, for example, these darker parts are still wet, but the other parts are a little bit more dry. So here, you know, it's kind of darky, and then here, this is after having it dried. Yeah, this pattern here I wanted to have in 2 colors, so the flower itself shall stay light. The background I wanted to have darker, so that's why I started to use a very fine brush to color the environment of the flower with dark color. You have to be very careful with that because the leather is kind of soaking it and spreading it. Yeah, you have just to keep the dark color away from the flower, and because a single drop cannot be undone, it cannot be deleted. So here you see on the very right picture, all the environment of the flower is colored with the fine brush, and later I can go with a bigger brush and color the rest of it. And here you see the result. So this is after having it stamped, oiled, and colored. This is the stage here. Still looks a little flat, for example, on the right side, one colored. To make the stamping a little bit more visible, we have in the next step something which is named antique finishing, I will say. So after the coloring, we have a kind of finishing process. For this antique finish, you have a kind of paste which is generally darker than the color used, and depending on what you want to reach, you know, for example, here in this example, I don't want to have this saddle tan color darker, so I have blocked it with a different liquid, so that it does not soak the color of the antique finish. And if I spread the paste afterwards onto the whole surface, it sticks in the cutted part or in the stamped parts, etc. And I first spread the paste all over the surface, and then with a piece of sheet, I just swipe down the antique finish from the surfaces, but the antique finish stays still in the cuts and in the stamped parts. So, you know, compared with this part here, for example, you see the stamped flowers are much more visible. The contrast is there. This is because of the antique finish. And afterwards, you again use a kind of preservation liquid, which is translucent, to protect the antique finish from getting out of these cuts here. The same is done for this pattern. Here, of course, because of this dark color, you don't see it very much, but here in the flower, you see the paste is still on it. And after swiping it down, you see the difference to the left. So some cutted parts and stamped parts are just darker. So, and here you see this is named Temco. This is the liquid which I then use to preserve the color and the surface. It also makes the surface a little bit more shiny, more high quality looking, not that matte, but a little bit more shiny. And it also fixes the antique finish in the cuts, so that it does not dry and fall out over time. Then it has to be dried, of course, again, and still it is not a ready-to-use glass cover. So what I did in next step, the inside, can you see my picture in the screen? Most probably not.
We can see your picture, Cüneyt abi.
You can see me? Okay, good. The leather normally has the skin side, the outside, and then the other side is the flesh side. The flesh side is always not that very nice like the other surface, yeah. And if you have a kind of leather product where the flesh side is visible, it is not nice looking. So you can process this side as well. Or what I did is I used a different type of leather with different colors, etc. This one is, for example, much more soft. Velvet-like suede leather, I think it's named. You can choose the color you like, etc. And then what I do is I just glue it to the flesh side. For that you have to know how to properly glue it. And after gluing it, that's different type of glue. You have to press it very hard so that they stick very good together. And for that I use such kind of welding devices. Yeah, I just put pressure onto both leathers that the glue sticks together. So after that I use such kind of scalpel to cut the edges. And with this here you see on this right lower pictures, I have my the inside of the glass cover and the outside now ready to be processed in the next step. Yeah, what's the next step? Of course, the edges, they are just simply cut out. They are not very shiny or flattened. Yeah, they're not very smooth. Yeah. So what I do is I just use sandpaper to equalize the surface a little bit. Also, these two different types of leather, that they have a kind of proper the proper fitting, yeah, that they get smooth. And then after that, you put some kind of different liquid or paste onto the edges. And with this wooden devices here, you just, it's named burnishing, yeah. You kind of scratch very fast on the leather edges. And with that, they are getting smoother, they are getting, yeah, nice looking, not that rough like here. They're just more shiny, the edges. And this is something which differs higher quality leather goods from cheaper quality leather goods. If you have some leather belts where the edges are kind of rough, you know, they are just simply cut and that's it. If someone processes the edges, it gets a different feeling. You know, you have the impression that it is just higher quality. It makes a little bit different. So edging, working out the edges is very important at the end. So and then the next steps is just about mounting it so that it gets a glass cover at the end. The first time I used such kind of leather pieces for the nose part of the glasses. I tried two different techniques here the first time. And then before gluing and sewing it together, you have, of course, to place the buttons. Otherwise, you cannot reach them anymore. So in the first step, you glue the edges together. Here you see, for example, I removed parts of the inner leather so that the wedge tent leather parts get on each other and then can be glued together. So after that, I just glue them, press them, and after having it dried, I cut out the overstanding parts of the edges, and then again sanding the edges to make it more smooth. And before burnishing the edges of color, I mean, I colored them also. I also cut with such a again a beveling device. I cut out a kind of how to say nude. Yeah, a kind of groove, yeah, so that after sewing it, that the threads stay not on the leather but in the leather, yeah. So you have this, and after that grooving, I use these devices here. I don't know the names. That's the problem. I know it in German. Okay, doesn't matter. This is a device where you just put holes into the leather, because you can imagine this is, I don't know, 2.45 millimeter thick of leather, and glued to each other, it's almost 5 millimeters. You cannot sew it with simple needles. Yeah, you will not get through the leather. So that's why you have to first put the holes into the leather, and afterwards, yeah, you can start sewing them. And again here, since you do everything by your own, you can choose even the color of the threads. And there are various types and sizes and diameters of the threads existing. Here, since this is orange looking like the pattern, I choose an orange thread here. And you see also there is a different sewing technique here. It's a saddle maker's style of or technique of sewing. You use two needles which go in opposite directions through every hole. And what makes it different to a machine sewed leather, for example, is you know it from your clothes. You know, if the thread or the wire is cut on one side, the whole sewing is getting opened. But with this technique, even if one thread is cut here, it still stays sewed with the other thread. So it's longer lasting and higher quality at the end. And this type of sewing cannot be reproduced by a machine yet. So this is really something which can be achieved only with handcraft. So the sewing process is done, and this is how it looks like. But here the buttons are still missing. So also the edges are getting processed, and the buttons have been put onto the device, and then yeah, the glass cover is finished. And this is the end of the product, at least when it comes to the glass covers. So if you have different types of leather goods, you have to use different steps, of course. But more or less, these are the steps, yeah, how to produce such leather goods. More or less also the same with quivers. So now we are at the topic of quivers. So what kind of quivers are existing? We do have, of course, historical quivers. I concentrated more on the Ottoman style of quivers. Of course, there are much more existing, Mongolian, Tatar, etc. Even Western style, but yeah, since we do traditional archery and in Frankfurt we do the Ottoman style more, I also concentrated on the Ottoman style. And I will show you some different types and explain also things we figured out over time. Yeah? So unfortunately, if you go into museums, you will only find the shiny, nice looking side of the quivers, but not the backside, which is more important if you want to construct it yourself. So if you only see the front side, you don't know how they are mounted with the belt, etc. And also in the museums, you have quivers which are not preserved properly over time. You know, I don't know, these quivers you see here, they are in the museum here in Koblenz. How did they get there? Most probably they get into Western hands after a battle and then passed over generations. Many wars were in between. Yeah, you never know how they were stored, etc. And at the end, they reached us in this shape, not preserved properly. Yeah, for example, these things here, these wires are attached afterwards to hang it most probably onto the wall or somewhere else. These are not the original belts used for the quivers. Also here, this one is also not properly preserved, whereas this quiver here, it's preserved as a whole. Yeah, you have the belt, you have this attachment, you have these metal pieces, and there you can have a closer look how historically they were made. They also have special metal parts. They are used in a different way in the past. Nowadays, we don't have them. You cannot buy these metal parts in the market. What we get is from saddle makers. We have, I don't know, conchos and such stuff, which we kind of misuse to make it appear like looking original Ottoman quivers. Yeah, but yeah, historical examples we do have. And then, of course, many people who do replicas by themselves, they don't have the knowledge from the past. They have just this front size of the quivers, and then they have their own interpretation on it. Sometimes they think even being more, I don't know, clever like the people in the past. So they add more things or attach more things onto the modern interpretation of these quivers, and then wonder why they don't work in practical use as they shall be working, for example, on horseback. Yeah, I, for example, with my experience, can tell you that this left quiver here, the quiver on the left side. On horseback, it will just jump around very wild. You will not be able to use it properly. The same for these ones. And here even you have an example where they notice that it is not working out in action on horseback. So that's why they make it something which they strap onto their leg. They'll not make it jumping. But in the past, they had no belts to strap it onto your leg. So there has to be a difference somehow, yeah. So something is different here, and the difference is not in the shape of the quiver, but more in the construction of it. It's just differently constructed than this one. And also here, some modern interpretation, very nice craftsmanship, but technically not constructed properly, in my opinion, because I noticed it also the hard way. The very first quiver, which I did with Jürgen in my workshop, has the same failure. I need to demonstrate it a little bit to you. Give me a second. So, this is a very nice looking quiver, okay, but badly constructed. And this is because of lack of experience, which I had in the very beginning. Now we also added some extra straps and extra buckles to here onto the belt. And what you see is, if you are in movement, it will badly shake and move. So on the ground, this quiver works nice, but on horseback, it's just not usable. That's what I noticed after a year of usage. When I was the first time on horseback with that quiver, it just did not work out, and I was just wondering why. Because optically it was looking like the originals, and the difference in the construction I was just not seeing at that time. So again, some historical quivers here. In the museums, as I said, you only see the front size. The back side with the construction you barely see. These pictures here I don't have from museums, but from internet. And also something which I noticed is that many quivers, not all of them, but really many of them do have these chains here in the front. I have not figured out what the purpose of them is. It's not just for decoration, for sure, but yeah, until now nobody knows. And here also some historical examples. The one from the left here is not even an Ottoman-owned quiver. It's even made, I think, for a duke in Germany. You have German writings here on it. It has an Ottoman style, but at that time it was just modern to have Ottoman style stuff. But it's not produced by Turks. So the one in the center here, this one was the example which I used for building my very first quiver. And on the right side, you have even a Russian quiver. You see it from the eagle here. Also, there are different decorations, but the type of it, it's Ottoman style. So, own constructions. Here, this is the quiver which I produced in 2017 and 18 together with Jürgen. This is the example we used, or the inspiration, and this one here is the result with my bow and with my arrows, etc. And here you see also the surface of it. It really took a lot of time to get it done. We worked 2 men, 8 days, and at least 10 hours a day. Even some days we worked 15 hours. All because of this pattern. There is a lot of things to stamp, a lot of surface to be stamped, and that took just a lot of time. Yeah, and when it comes to the construction, as I said, I have never had a quiver before. I have never shot from horseback, so no experience. That's why we did what we knew at that time. So this was the very first experience of mine. And later, after some years of thinking about it, what to improve, etc., we initiated in Frankfurt our first quiver workshop, where 6 of our club members and me had 2 weekends in totally 4 days to produce quivers for us, only the arrow quivers, and simple looking, but the idea was to have them technically properly constructed, that they are better usable on horseback. And meanwhile, I even saw the original here in a museum in Dresden, and noticed, for example, that my quiver was almost the double size of the original one. So we also shrink the size of the quiver to what I had in my memory at that time, seeing it in the museum. What we cared about was the construction a little bit. Here still, I did some mistakes, or we did some mistakes, but overall, the quiver here and the quiver on the left side I still use. I also use it on horseback, and it's working out fine for me. What you see is, for example, here this part. Can you see my mouse?
No,
Can you?
we cannot
I
see
cannot
it.
see my mouse. Okay, so unfortunately, again, I cannot show you. But the quiver in the middle, the bigger one, you see that there is one long strap. I can show it. Maybe you should see me. You can show it on the original quiver. Yeah. This part is still long, and this is leading to also a lot of movement while using it on horseback. Yeah, this is something I figured out. Theoretically, it should be much shorter like this, and with this, it will not move anymore. It will just stick on the belt and don't jump around while shooting. So this is something after constructing it and using it on horseback, you had to figure it out again practically. But overall, here you see the quivers we made. We used 2 different types of it, and everyone did everything by their own. So it was a kind of nice experience for them to work with the leather, to see how hard it is, what we nowadays get very simple in mass production. Yeah, so hence craftsmanship is just different. You know the value more of something you did by your own. And so this was the first weekend, and then we had a year later we had a second workshop where we improved again our quivers inside in how we constructed it. Meanwhile, we get also some books from museums where the measurements of the quivers were documented. So we were able to get closer to the original Ottoman sizes. And the second workshop in Kenmankeş was then done. And this is it when it comes to producing quivers. Yeah, hopefully next winter we will have our third workshop where we will again improve a little bit more, and step by step, improving ourselves and learning from everything. This is about archery and quiver production. The next steps, I will just show you some things which I did in the past. For example, here I had a boot where some textile was on it, which was always kind of breaking. Yeah, I get it fixed once, and then it breaks again. And I thought, okay, I will do it myself with something nice from leather. So I cut out the textile part, and I did some leather work here on it, and then I mounted it onto my Timberlands, and it kind of made it more high quality and better looking and longer lasting. And also had some training work, a quiver for knives, which we use for while cutting leather, for example, half moon knives, and also some kind of I don't know the English word. What's that? Yeah, hair clips for women. Yeah, and then some key holders, which I did. I did a lot of belts. This is the first, the upper left one is the first one I did for myself. The others were just for my relatives, for their birthdays, etc. Something you cannot buy outside, by the way, because the thickness of the leather is sometimes here 9 millimeters and sometimes 7 millimeters. Hand sewn, hand colored, etc. Yeah, very long lasting. And then this was my first commercial project. A guy here from Germany, he's very addicted to traditional clothing and owning them, swords, etc. And he wanted to get a kind of Göktürk-like belt from me, which I did for him. And here you see it on his traditional clothes while wearing this. Yeah, also some upcycling projects for my daddy, some other parts. Yeah, this is the second leather belt I did myself after giving away a lot to my relatives for their birthdays, etc. And yeah, also book covers, which I did in the past. You can see here for my daughter, mainly. Also kind of long wallets. The left one here is fully produced by me, inside and outside. The one in the right side, I don't want to do the inside here. We just bought a long wallet where we removed the outside, and I produced this outside here and just sewed it onto the bought long wallet. The guy who wanted to have this, for whom I did it, he's from Konya in Turkey originally. That was the capital from the Seljuk Empire. So that's why we also took the eagle of the Seljuk Empire and also some Seljuk patterns, Islamic patterns here onto the wallet, so it totally fits him. And then, of course, I also did a lot of glass quivers for my dads, for my sisters, etc. And here on the right lower side, you see a work of mine where I first time use a different type of leather combination. Yeah, it's real python snake leather combined with vegetable tanned cow leather. Was also something where I learned a lot. Future plans. Of course, I want to develop myself. I want to draw my own patterns instead of copying it from the internet by Googling it. Also, there is a different type of 3D modeling the leather. It's just a different technique, which I want to learn. Also, dyeing, which I showed you, is a very simple type of dyeing the leather. You can work with airbrush and with different type of colors, etc., where I want to develop myself. And also, of course, new projects, new leather goods, etc. One thing which I have in queue is to produce an arrow quiver, which comes very close to the original Ottoman ones. And I was asked from the Foundation Museum for Archery in Istanbul to produce something for them that they can show to their visitors. This is it from my side. You can theoretically and practically follow me on Facebook or Instagram. And there I have a lot of more photos of things, what I did with leather. And of course, you can also see what I will do in future. This is it from my side. So if you have questions, or remarks, etc., we can step into discussion and talk.
Cüneyt abi, thank you very much for the exciting presentation, the colorful pictures as well, and the professional hard work that you've put through. As Cüneyt abi said, we are opening the platform for any questions. Please, if you have any questions that you want to ask, unmute yourself, or if you want to send it in the chat, I can read it out loud, so everyone can hear it, and Cüneyt abi can try to answer it. Go ahead, Sister Dua.
Yes, I just had a question about your equipment. I'm assuming that the quality of your equipment really matters for the type of work that you do. And sort of where do you source that type of equipment from?
Yeah, when it comes to equipment, my father says the right equipment is half of the work. And it's really true. If you start with low quality equipment, you will for sure buy a second one later, a better one. So where do I get it from? I mean, you can buy cheap ones to start. If you want to try out, you can buy cheap things from China online. And then the higher the quality gets, the more you have to search for better products. This type of leather working is very, very widely spread in the US. So there you find a lot of equipment because the saddlery, the Western style of the saddle makers, etc., they all use this kind of things, and all the techniques comes from there. All these things what I showed you is nothing traditional Ottoman. Traditional Ottoman is they used different type of clothing, and then they sewed with silver or gold threads, etc., on it, which you can see also in the museums. But this type of leather work comes from the US, from saddle makers originally. And there you find the higher quality tools. In different shops, they are widely sold online. There are a lot of online shops where you get the colors, all the liquids, the oil, the tools. And when it comes to which quality you want to have, you need to just make your own experience. It also depends on your budget, of course. The higher quality the tools are, the more you have to pay for them. For example, this type of stamps here, for example, which I use. The cheaper ones you get for €5 from China. The more expensive ones you get for €50. Depending on the source. Yeah, the US ones have that price. So it can cost €5 or €50, depending on the quality of the iron. And also the knives, the other tools. There are a lot of different tools existing. You will not buy everything at once. You have to step by step develop yourself to that direction. Advantages. It depends on the purpose. Yeah. For example, in the cars, in the vehicles you drive, you have leather seats, etc. Nowadays they're all artificial leather, and they are specially produced for that purpose. They have to be long-lasting. The surface has to be more durable. If you have natural leather, you see scratches a little bit easier, but that makes it, of course, more natural again. Yeah. The vegetable tanned leathers, for example, they are kind of more healthy because they are not chemically processed. They are totally naturally processed with natural materials. And for that, if you have allergies, etc., you will not have it with the vegetable tanned leathers. But with artificial ones, when they are chrome tanned or some different chemicals are used, you may not be able to wear it if you have kind of allergies against them. So that's a difference, for example. So I have to go to the chat for a moment.
I think Cüneyt abi, we have Murat. He raised his hand before Sister Dua sent her message. So we take
Yes.
first. Go ahead.
I have a question due to the patterns, Cüneyt abi. If you want to craft patterns on your quiver, do you recommend that we draw it by hand, or that we just used stamps, which is the most efficient way to get the patterns on leatherwork?
I mean, you can get your pattern. I mean, you can get patterns with both ways onto your leather. The thing is, if you want to if you want to generate, can you see my screen again? Such kind of
Yes.
pattern, which you see on the right side, you will not find ready-to-use stamps or tools for that. You need to use different tools and get to this pattern by working it out. And there are other patterns. All of what I did is, by the way, like this. But there are also stamps which do have kind of flowers on it, etc. And then you can, of course, stamp around, get also patterns on it. But they will just look different. You know, that depends on the pattern you want to have on your leather.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Can you decorate artificial leather with stamps in the same way as natural? No, you cannot, because the artificial leathers, they are already, the artificial leathers are mass-produced generally, yeah, and they are produced for a certain purpose, for industrial processing as well. So if you want to have patterns on that leather, you have to produce the artificial leather in a way that they have the pattern. But again, if you want to have such kind of long wallet, which you see on the right side, and want to mass produce it, you have to build pressing blocks, etc., metal pieces which do imprint this pattern onto the leather. And all that, of course, increases the cost of it. So you have to go to mass production that it is worth to do it. And at the end, it will still look artificial because it looks more perfect, like hand-produced things. For example, if you work out such a double-headed eagle, if you do it twice, it will never, both of them will look different. But if you have machine-produced things, they will look the same. Okay, Fadima, alles gut. And okay, so no questions.
Yeah, Sister Safia was making dua for you, Cüneyt abi. I think she's happy to have heard whatever you've presented and the quality of it. So thank you very much again. We'll take one more question if there's any other pressing question before we end the seminar for today, the webinar for today. All right. Allow me, on behalf of myself, everyone who attended, and the Mamluk Academy members, to thank you, Cüneyt abi, for your presentation today. It has been truly insightful. We thank everyone who has attended with us today as well. Maybe Murat has a question. I think we'll take it offline then, Murat. But yeah, thank you everyone for your time and your effort, especially Cüneyt abi. And stay tuned for our next webinar in June coming up, hopefully soon. And we look forward to seeing all of you in Mamluk Games in Ankara soon. Thank you very much and have a lovely evening. Thank you, Cüneyt abi.
Thank you too. Have a nice evening.
Assalamu alaikum. Bye-bye.
Alaikum salam.